fais l'introduction.
One, two, one, two. Okay.
All right, people, welcome to this presentation on Migrate for recurring data import. The talk today will be about our experience using Migrate with a few tips and tricks that we've picked up along the way. There will be a questions and answer session at the end, so if you could please note down your questions and keep them for later. And with that being said, let us introduce ourselves.
So this is us. We didn't bother to update the the pictures, but yeah, this is us. My name is Adelson. I'm the tech lead at WebStands. We are a small Drupal web agency based in Mons, Belgium. And yeah, I'm generally the go-to Migrate guy at work. And this is Arthur.
Yep, so I work also for WebStands, but I work on a particular project called Ascoli. And what I do is I have to handle on a daily basis a large quantity of data. It says in the slides about 1 million records a day. We've done a bit of cleanup since then, and we're about at 600,000 now, but better data. So it's all for the good. So with that being said, a small introduction to what is Migrate. Migrate is a Drupal tool for us developers, also for some content managers. And on the more historic side, Migrate was originally a module that was used to transfer data from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. So yeah, it's a way to transfer, to migrate a site, hence the name Migrate. And it was used to facilitate the transition between 7 and 8. How does it work internally? It's an ETL process. What does ETL stands for is extract, transform, and load. So that means that you have a source, which can represent any sort of data. Let's say, for example, a CSV file, okay, or an Excel sheet. Then there's a process plugin, or multiple process plugins, which will be used to transform the data in a way that Drupal can handle better. And once that is done, there's the destination plugin, which will inject that data into Drupal. So it can be like inserting this inside nodes or taxonomy terms, whatever you're using.
So yeah, at WebStands we used to do everything custom when we needed to import stuff inside Drupal. But then we started to use Migrate a couple of years ago, and we never looked back really. So we gathered some key points that we wanted to share our experiences about. Those are those points. But first, we were curious to see how many of you are like us. Do you use Migrate for regular data import? Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
quite many
Nice.
people actually. I
Okay.
didn't expect that. Okay.
Then who doesn't like use Migrate at all? Who never used it?
Anyone who's never
Okay,
used
nobody.
Migrate?
Nice.
No. Okay.
Okay.
Anyone who uses any other type of automated import for data, like custom stuff, or some people that
Sorry.
mix both of them. Okay, those are the experts.
Okay. Then, yeah. If you want to challenge us after the talk, yeah, I'm particularly done for it. So we'll see after.
Yep. So let's get straight into it. First point: data integrity. So what do we mean by data integrity? Essentially, the question is how to not import dumb data, data that you don't want to get in Drupal. There's one thing that you have to keep in mind is that the source is sometimes not up to you, and so you can sometimes get really strange stuff. So a way to prevent the import of corrupted data is to use simply the process plugins. There are multiple plugins that can perform checks, and when you do these checks, you can tell if it doesn't pass, skip the entire row. You don't want to import that stuff. Or you can do better, and well, not better, but you can do more radically and skip the entire migration, but that's up to you. Another way to do it, if your source data is really specific, that you can't find any process plugin to handle it, you can always try to create your own custom process plugins, and in which case you would probably want to use to throw an exception, which is the migrate skip row exception. So I've included a link to a documentation to help you write your first process plugin if you need it. But anyway, in any way, there is a plethora of process plugins that already exist right now.
So yeah, here are a couple of ways you can check incoming data because yeah, that's something that beat us like on every project. We assume something from our data. We assume some field is not nullable or is, and then we are wrong. So yeah, here are a couple ways that you can check your assumptions about the data. First, you can use the entity validation on the destination plugins. That's a must, if you ask me. I think most of you will know about it, but still. So that's the how you would do if you wanted to run the entity validation on the when the entity is created during the migrate process. And then you have some process plugins that are really helpful to check your incoming data. You get skip on value and skip on empty. They do pretty much what they are what they are called. And then you get static map which is really useful too. You can match incoming data with a map of values, and then specify what's going to happen depending on if the value is in the map or not. You can make it skip the row or provide a default or stuff like that, which is really useful. And then I think, yeah. So another thing we did is for when the API is extra crappy, like it doesn't provide IDs or stuff like that. Extending the source plugin is also really easy to do to filter out stuff directly before coming in the process pipelines. Then,
So,
yeah.
second point of this presentation, scheduling migration execution. So let's just say for this example that you created a cron job that will import a few migrations, one after the other, but quite some heavy migrations. And so once you've done fixing everything, you know it's going to work, you're happy about it, you say no time to waste, I'm launching it, and I'll wait to see overnight how it went out. Let's say it takes like 8 hours to do. So you press that button and you leave it be. So you launch it overnight, you wait, and you wait those 8 hours. 8 hours later, oh crap, what's this? You thought your migration was going to work fine, but then there's just this one error that popped up, and you look in the logs and you find that, oh, wait, that was right at the beginning. I launched it, I left, and it just crashed right there and then. And you're like, why? And it gives you this nice little error message. Migration is busy. Migration is busy. What the hell does that mean? Why? Why was it busy? I launched it. What? It's supposed to be busy. How is this an error? Well, stuff happens sometimes, and the way Migrate works is that sometimes you test your migrations before launching it in production or something, and you launch your migration and it fails, but for some strange reason, there is that little Boolean value in your migration that says, is it still importing or is it done? I don't know. And when it crashes, that value is not changed. It stays on being imported. So when you try to launch it again, it says, oh, but wait, I'm already importing, even though it actually crashed. So when that happens, whenever your migration crashes for any reason, well, not necessarily any reason, it will depend on the case, but anyway, when it crashes, don't forget to reset that import status. Because if you don't reset that import status, you're going to get some unexpected migration is busy errors.
So yeah, as at WebStance, we use regular cron jobs to run our scheduled migrations. We think it's the preferred methods for everyone. We'll see if everyone agrees after this. It's pretty straightforward. We simply commit a script with our project and then run it on cron. But then you could also use a regular cron or a module, but then you'd have to run into stuff like the PHP max execution time and stuff like that, which you wouldn't if you execute it on the CLI. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Arthur? Okay. Another thing you will have to handle if you run the migration regularly is for when it will inevitably fails. So yeah, it's a must to have a way to report when it does fail. I mean, you could simply wait for the client to call or the end user to call, but yeah, that's not ideal. For now, we are using custom sensors for the monitoring module, and if you don't know about it, it's a fantastic module. Just look it up. It allows you to run basically arbitrary code in plugins at regular intervals and then do alerting and monitoring for pretty much anything you want. But we are still looking for a nicer solution, something yeah more adapted. So if you if you have something for us, just tell us after this. So yeah, another thing we have to do most of the time is when it fails, just report on why it fails and who is responsible. That's something you probably most probably had to do also. The couple ways we do that usually is the output of the cron jobs and the migrate messages. Um, and then you could also use the log process plugin, which is really useful, but not I don't think a lot of us knows about it. And then another thing that is really useful when you need to assign responsibility on why the import failed is simply keeping the incoming data, so you can simply check if the issue was in the import or in the incoming data. And spoiler, it will be most of the time in the incoming data. um,
Yeah, so let's go into another example on error reporting. So here is, for example, a custom feature that I implemented for Ascoli, which is simply an emailable report. So what happens is that you launch your migrations, you keep trace of the different error messages, and at the very end of your cron job, you just send an email with the different error messages, quite simply. So yeah, that email should preferably contain the name of the migration that was launched. Um, then you can have a sample of the error message that you can find in the migrate messages. And preferably you want one email for all your imports if you're doing it daily. You don't want one email per migration. That would, if you've got a lot of migrations, that can quickly become a mess. So here's a quick sample, for example.
Another thing that you most probably had to do is partial import, partial updates, and you have a couple ways to do that. Oh. So yeah, if most of you did use Migrate, you will know about those, but still. So you got an update rush flag that will simply update everything coming from your source data. Then you have the iWater property. That's something you can use in for when you have the last modified date for each row coming from your source data, but still it's quite finicky, and if you want to use it with like uh, without exactly what it wants, you will have to write custom code for it. The one we end up using the most is simply the track changes source plugin option, which will store a hash for each incoming rows and compare it with the next import hash. And then the newer sync drush flag, which is like a godsend for this use case, which will uh, delete the 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 nodes or the entities which are not in the source data anymore when you import. So yeah, we feel like Migrate is a really nice tool for doing data import and synchronizations. That's something we will keep on using. We feel like it's the perfect tool if you want regular entities. So you could do something custom, but yeah, most of the time we use Drupal for all the niceties, and that's something Migrate is perfect for creating entities. Then also Migrate is really cool if you want to leverage all the ecosystem. There are loads of custom modules, and also most probably you can find help on the Drupal Slack or like piece of codes or and stuff like that. So that's nice. And then also the characteristic of Migrate versus other solutions is that it's asynchronous, so you just import during the night or whatever. But that's something that's like a big characteristic of using Migrate. And yeah, if it doesn't bother you, then I feel like you should probably use it for this use case. So yeah, that's it for us, Arthur.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, we'll take them now. I see we have about 10 minutes left. So are there any questions?
Yeah, thanks for the session. It was really interesting. I'm using Migrate since Drupal 7, and the architecture of the modules quite changed between 7 and 8. In 7, we used to write migration classes in PHP object forms. Now we have plugins and mainly YAML-file in my experience. And it may be linked to the business case you're working with, but in my experience, I feel that with Migrate, you have a shit ton of YAML files to deal with. And it may be a pain in the ass to maintain on the long run. Do you have any similar experience? And did you try to address them with maybe other solutions like migration patterns, DTO patterns, something object-oriented, for example?
So from my point of view, at least, when I started working on the Ascoli project, there were about 30 or 40 different migration files, which is already a lot in that context. Without forgetting that we're working with a multilingual site, so there's like you have to multiply it by 3 to get the entire list. So yes, you do get a lot of migration files, but there is one module you can use that will enable you to hide different configuration files. But then if these YAML files you're using for migrations, you want to change them frequently, then that might not be the solution you want. If it's just hiding them so that you don't necessarily export them and import them, for example, then that might be a solution for you. If it's not, there is another way. What I've done is using that module to hide the configuration files. I also created a custom module to generate automatically the files that I need and to replace the files that I don't need. So for example, on our website, we have a list of different merchants, and they each have their own products. And what I want is import automatically those products. And so what happens is that I have a mapping page where you can define the different mappings between your source and your destination. And when you click save, it will automatically generate that YAML file for the migration. And you don't even need to see it. You won't see it because there's the other module that hides them. And in that sense, I find that it's better. It's my solution anyway. There might be a better one. But at least now there should be like, I think, at least 60 or 70 migration files without counting translations if I were to actually see those files. But I don't, because they're automatically generated.
One more question just about this.
Yeah.
So this is a custom factory you've created for your own project. Do
Yes.
you plan to contribute on the community?
Well, the one I created is so tightly coupled to the website that I'm working on that might not be a good idea to do it. Maybe refactor it and make it more a general use case could be a solution. Same thing with the email report. I could maybe do something to contribute, but as of now, that's not in our plans, but maybe some time.
Okay, thank you.
What I did use in a couple projects are derivers. So is that something you're familiar with? Yeah, well, yes. So I do use them for like translations, one derivers for the migration, and then just do it for every language of the site. For like taxonomies too, you have like the same migration for 10 taxonomies. Well, just use a deriver for that. And then also migration groups, but I feel like derivers are way more powerful than migration groups, which are most of the time I simply use them for like one or two like the options, and then I don't find them very powerful like derivers. So yeah, there is that. I don't know if somebody wants to say something about this too, and make it something you know lively.
I was going to talk about derivers too, which can be a powerful tool. But I also wanted to know if you've ever dealt with a source which are multiple CSV files and which can change over time. How you
You're talking about having sources that can change over time. So
a source is composed of multiple CSV files.
if
Well,
one
in my
source,
use case, actually, I used Migrate so that researchers could upload data with a CSV file, and every time it's a new migration. I'm not sure it's a good idea because every time you create a new Migrate map table. So I was wondering if there was a way to consider all these CSV files as a single source.
so from my understanding is that you have multiple sources, but all of these sources have the same fields. Like, are they the same columns?
All of those CSV files have the same structure.
Yeah, if they have exactly the same structure, then technically that's exactly the same source from the configuration standpoint. It's just the path to the source that will change. So one thing that we use, but it's more for the clients than for the developers, is Migrate Source CSV, which, no, is it Microsoft CSV?
Yes, Migrate to CSV is the basic module to
No, I'm talking about that there's this page you have in the back office where you can choose a specific file for the import. And so if you just choose multiple different files and use the same migration, it will import using that same migration. Migrate Source UI, thank you. Thank you, boss. Yeah.
I think I have something exactly right for you. I heard about a country module which would take all the files inside the directory, and then like load it in the source plugin. I don't remember the name. It's like really fuzzy, but I will find it after this. So yeah.
Right, thanks.
And maybe it would be worthwhile to ask for a feature where in your YAML file you could like have an array of paths instead of just one file, and then
it's dynamic because every time in the research.
yeah, but maybe you could just have one custom module that will update that one file, adding or removing paths depending on. I don't know exactly what project you're working on, but that's just some idea I'm throwing out there. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Maybe no, we don't really have time anymore. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to come up to Adelson and I. We'd be happy to answer them. But for this session, that will be all. So we just want to let you know that WebStance is hiring. So if for some reason you are still not a developer with a job and you want one, don't hesitate to come to us. So here's our QR code, and a huge thank you to them for letting us be here today with you. It's really a great team, and what more to say? Thank you to our sponsors, Calibrate and Drop Solids, who have made this event possible, and to all of the gold sponsors, so those presented here, I won't name them all. And if you want to stay in touch, don't hesitate to go to Facebook or Twitter, or even Slack. Big shout out to all contributors because they do a shit ton of work and there's still more to be done. Don't hesitate to become part of the community and contribute as well. And yeah. And this is, okay. And good day.